Traditions and customs are national treasure. Kazakh people observe traditions over many centuries. The Great Steppe is an amulet of the country. You can watch the customs and traditions of the Kazakhs in the Modern Nomads program.
The traditions and customs in Kazakh people's life are classified into two patterns. The first is customs that we do every day, which became part of the nation's life. The second is customs preserved as the nation's spiritual wealth. Today's program is about customs closely connected with Kazakh people's life. For instance, to present a horse to a respected man, to give a CHAPAN, to show respect to a guest, tradition running deep in our blood.
Ат мінгізу, шапан жабу дәстүріне келетін болсақ, бұл
If to talk about the tradition as presenting a horse and putting a CHAPAN around the shoulders, these have always been in use in Kazakh people's everyday life. They say he was given a horse as a gift, had a CHAPAN put around his shoulders. These can prove that the guest is respected and obviously one of the important traditions. However, this can be used as a fault. So they say, he gave a horse, a CHAPAN. When a man is guilty, then this situation takes place as well. Generally, if to analyze the tradition of giving a horse, it consists of several stages. There are special ways of giving a horse. When we have guests as respected people or people who rarely visit, and those who never come, or when well-known people, as Khans, Joly comes, they are presented. This is one of the Kazakhs' favorite traditions.
Қазақтың ең бір жақсы көретін сол салтының бірі ол өзінің.
Horses are a wealth of nomads. For this, giving a horse to honored guests, respected old men, is the greatest of showing respect. In the old Kazakh society, a horse was not given to everyone. Giving a horse to an artist, improviser, poets, and heroes is a continued tradition. It is still in use at present. They present a horse grazed in the pasture and that runs well, which the host is familiar with. If the guest is an older man, they do not present a horse that runs well, but the one which is good for riding. He'll be given a pacing horse and will have a CHAPAN put around his shoulders. There are various types of CHAPANs. There's also tradition of giving CHAPANs. It depends on the status of a person in society. Certainly it will be sang in songs. They say, brocaded coat and the Khans wear. It is said, it is clear that this brocaded coat will not be given to ordinary people. For that you need to be a Khan. They also say battle clothes that Khans wear. There are the types of army clothing that Khans wear in crusades and wars. They are called battle clothes. Other heroes did not wear them. Only Khans wore them in wars, means that everyone has their own type of clothing. Putting a CHAPAN on one's shoulders is one of the ways of showing respect, which goes along with giving a horse. Therefore, they are mentioned together, but there is a phrase in our nation's vocabulary as horse and CHAPAN as a fault. In one word, a horse and a CHAPAN are used not only for showing respect, but also to determine a fault. And in old Kazakh society, they gave a horse and a CHAPAN as a compensation of a crime committed. In history, it is known that a good horse was given as a tribute in interstate relations, and also as a compensation in intertribal relations. A horse with a saddle and all other parts. This is the biggest gift. This mostly takes place in interstate relations. For example, this occurs in historical data. The Khan of the Khiva Khanate sent a gift to Kenisari Batir. In the Khiva Khanate, they used to give a well-bred horse. Descendants of the horses is Turkmen horse breed, Akhal Tike horse, or thoroughbred horse. They put a silver-plated saddle on horseback, as well as a sword and horsecloth. It is mostly used in diplomatic relations. Principally setting a guest on the horseback means that a guest leads a horse on a leash. does not literally mean setting on horseback, but leading a horse on a leash. And there is also a tradition to give a pacing horse with a saddle and all other parts decorated with silver-plated stones as a dowry when a young lady is getting married. This can also be observed in Kazakh people's life.
Алтынды, күмісті, аттың жібереді. Сондай жағдайлар.
There are many traditions and customs associated with a horse, and our today's program is only one of them. It was written in historical materials that the Usun Khan presented a lot of gifts, thoroughbred horse to the Chinese Emperor Qing. It was said after the government Usun and Qing Empire had lived peacefully for centuries. There were some reports that horses caused the conflicts in ancient times. In some historical sources, it is said that a horse was taken from Fergana, and it is called Fergana horse, and they say it resulted in a war. Along with that, they noticed the distinctive features of horses of nomad tribes. The reason is the horses of nomad steppe got through many historical events over 1,000 years. Horses do not require much maintenance. In nature, it is satisfied with the food it finds with its own hooves, and bears many difficulties. They get used to go on far crusades. For this, their future, they were highly valued. These horses' descendants reached Egypt and Chum. Then they even reached Europe in the Huns period. Ural Kazakhs had thousands of horses in the steppe, and when there were the Russian-Turkish war, they sent the Kazakh soldiers from different parts. And Ural Kazakhs were those who didn't break the lines, because all horses they were riding were Kazakh steppe horses.
Бұзбай баратын тек Урал казактар болады екен. Өйткені астындағы жылқысының бәрі қазақ даласының қазақ жылқылары.
If a host is not generous and rich, every Kazakh cannot present a thoroughbred horse to a guest. There are a lot of stories telling about giving livestock to a poor man and a horse to those traveling without horses. There were not few of them. For instance, the wise man Abay Kunanbay Uli used to give a horse and warm coats not only to artists who came to his village, but also to poor people. There were some generous rich men. For example, there was a rich man, Birali, well-known representative of Kipchak tribe in the Turgay region. He had 6,000 or 9,000 or more horses, and gave many horses to today's Kostanay horse plant during the time of acquisition by confiscation. He understood that time was changing, but there is not written evidence of it, and is just the nation's word of mouth. That man made a lot of good things. That man helped many travelers by giving a horse whose horse had died. They used to say, Birali is there, he will give you a horse. Before his own death, he said he was in starvation. It depended on time. When he was challenged with starvation years, and he was asked for handouts in Kirzlorda and Jana Kurgan, he met a man who gave him a horse. So the history tells that the man took Birali and his daughter to his home, supported them, then his son married to Birali's daughter. After that, Birali went on pilgrimage to Turkestan and he died on the road. There were words that Birali said, the benefit that I did not enjoy while having 6,000 horses, I enjoyed with an ill horse. There are several ways of putting a CHAPAN around one's shoulder. For example, two parties of co-in-laws give each other expensive overclothes, materials. These gifts can also be given instead of a CHAPAN. In the old Kazakh society, giving a CHAPAN to each other by women was a sign of high respect. They gave a decorated fur coat, embroidered CHAPANs to wise grandmothers and mothers in the village. Giving a CHAPAN to women mostly occurred when the in-laws go to ask in marriage at feast. It is put around one's shoulders on its way during the farewell ceremony on the occasion of a daughter's marriage. It has various types. Giving materials when someone dies or during funerals remain as a tradition till today. It is practiced even when hosting guests. We give materials nowadays when someone passes away and when inviting relatives. This is a tradition coming down since ancient times. The reason is that at that time it was not easy to find clothes to buy. Everything was hand-tailored. In the Kazakh society those years there were not any plants or factories. Everything was made from sheep's wool and its skin, so materials and clothes from far abroad were very expensive. Therefore at that time giving the slab of material was the same as giving a CHAPAN. They gave by saying, "This is your way, your CHAPAN." Certainly there were honest people. If the Khan's wife or a woman called as the people's mother, who had a special place in society, came, then a host gave a CHAPAN, was kept at the bottom of the chest for such people. Our nation divides arrived guest as a chance comer, a special guest, and a wandering guest. Chance comer is a respected man who is going for a long journey and stopped to have shelter and food for a night. They introduce themselves as a chance comer. And a special guest is someone who came by invitation. A wandering guest is a person who travels inland, celebrating something, or those who is going to be a neighbor village to be a guest. But hosting any of these three guests is a must for everyone. Hosting guests is something that writers and travelers who came to the Kazakh land, wrote about Kazakhs, wrote about and highlighted. They describe Kazakh people's hospitality above all, and it is something Kazakh people are born with. Hosting guests is the steppe's unwritten law. Always to share, to give a guest is about hospitality that comes from Alash Khan times. It is told in those years writings about hospitality of Kazakh people, any Kazakh, when he or she was going for a journey, they did not take food with them. The reason was that on the road there would be a house to stay in. At least they will allow you to get in. And if it is a poor man's house, they will treat you with kozhe, a traditional cold drink. In some, it is clear that you would have a place to sleep in and something to eat. When there is a respected guest, they cut a sheep. These all are done due to talks. Why do Kazakhs respect? They respect the word. What do they expect? Kazakh people love news. When you go to a Kazakh's house, they will treat you with a meal. You will not worry about your house. Even you will not take the trouble of going outside to take care of your horse. Thus, they will cool your horse, give it water, or will send it to the pasture and will watch it so that it will not be stolen. Subsequently, to host guests, to serve them, to cook a meal and lay the table were direct responsibilities of a woman. Therefore, Kazakh women fully mastered the order and rules of hosting and treating guests. Also, they use this tradition of being hospitable in raising children, nurtures it to the next generation. Even if a guest is a stranger, they invite him to the home and treat him. They didn't ask him or her the questions as what he was doing and when would he leave. Kazakh people's tradition of hosting and serving guests occurred in Russian and Chinese writings and foreign travelers' diaries.
Кеңістінде мейірінде жазбаларынан байқалатын.
In the writings of Haynes and Meyer, you can notice when they describe Kazakhs, the first thing they mentioned was their hospitality. Also, they described Kazakh women as very hardworking. At that time, all household chores were women's work. Starting with putting up a yurt, a woman was responsible for housekeeping. It became a custom. Along with that, Kazakh people are very tolerant. They endured both cold and hot weather. No matter it is day or night, they moved on in 40 degrees of summer heat and in 30 degrees of winter cold. They wrote about this. Besides, they told about Kazakh's sharp eyes. They were able to see at a distance. They wrote that if we use a binocular, Kazakhs see clearly without it. They wrote about that they were able to see a tiny bird. They could tell you about its appearance and color. A guest brings its own wealth, one part to eat, another one to leave. This is about a chance comer and a respect guests. Due to this, our people hosted guests at home as their in-laws. To give a horse to a guest, to put a chapan around his shoulders, to cut a holy sheep, to show respect is a dignity engraved in our blood. This is national upbringing that has been in our nature for hundreds and thousands of years. It is a tradition that was established as a strict law. Let's preserve the next generation's heritage, old traditions of our ancestors.